This is victory over Russia. Historic elections just took place in Moldova. The Kremlin is in tears. Their plan has failed. Maia Sandu had crushed the pro-Russian forces. Moldova is now moving closer to the EU, while Putin supporters are staging protests. What's happening? Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Maria Farafonova, and here are the latest news. Breaking! Moldova has just held decisive parliamentary elections that will play a crucial role in shaping the country's future path. According to the Central Election Commission, the pro-European party of President Maia Sandu has secured a majority and achieved a confident victory. No exit polls were conducted in the country, so the results were released gradually as the Central Election Commission preceded the protocols. After 100% of the ballots were counted, the ruling President Maia Sandu's Party of Action and Solidarity received 50.16%. The Patriotic Bloc, led by former pro-Russian President Igor Dodon, gained 24.19%. The Alternative Bloc secured 7.97%, and the Democracy at Home Party received 6.2%, and our party finished with 5.62%. The results give Sandu's party an outright majority in parliament, 55 seats out of 101. This means her party retains full control and will not be forced to seek coalition partners. Right now, in the center of Chișinău, pro-Russian forces are preparing to stage protests. The Kremlin cannot accept that its plan has failed and that Moldova will not fall under its control. This is confirmed by leaked correspondence of the organizers obtained by the Moldovan outlet Newsmaker. According to messages published online, participants were promised cash rewards ranging from $50 to $300 for joining the protest and recruiting others. Police have confirmed that protests are being organized in Chișinău, with participants being offered money, and have warned about the legal consequences of such actions.
The police have information that people are being promised money to take part in the protest announced today in the capital, at a time when citizens are largely refraining from going out onto the streets. We once again remind the organizers that they bear full responsibility for such actions, and that the law provides punishment for these violations. The police respect every individual's right to freedom of expression and call on citizens to remain in control of their actions, resist pressure, and preserve their dignity.
For its part, the pro-Russian Socialist Party denied reports of payments to protest participants. The party accused the authorities of slander and an attempt to discredit public discontent amid the removal of opposition competitors.
We categorically reject these insinuations. Our actions have never been paid for or organized on the basis of hiring people. All our protests are exclusively peaceful, driven by enthusiasm, civic engagement, and the patriotism of the participants.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
These elections are considered critically important for Moldova's future path toward the European Union. They are no less significant for Ukraine. Kyiv is moving toward EU membership as part of the same package, and the stable border with Moldova is vital while resisting Russia's aggression. Stay tuned to find out why these elections were truly historic.
This is not just about electing the 101st deputy for the next 4 years. Today, Moldova is making the most important choice in its history.
The results of this vote will determine whether we stand firm as a stable democracy on the path to EU membership, a safe neighbor for Ukraine, and a guarantor of security for the Union, or whether Russia will destabilize us, turn us away from Europe, and make us a threat on Ukraine's southwestern border and the eastern frontier of Europe.
Having received official candidate status, Moldova stands on the threshold of starting formal negotiations for EU membership. Keeping Maia Sandu's Action and Solidarity Party in power will ensure significant progress on the path to European integration in the near future.
Because we've already been under Russia, they are occupiers. Even now their army is stationed in Transnistria and they won't take it back home. We already know, we lived with them. For example, I'm old enough to have lived in the Soviet Union, and now I've also been to Europe. I've seen how people live. Why should we have to live worse? We should also live well, like in the EU.
I hope that Sandu's party will win, and that we will join Europe. I'm from the diaspora. I've been living in Ireland for 18 years, and I came back specifically to vote at home.
The main rival of Sandu's party is the pro-Russian political force, the Patriotic Electoral Bloc. The leading role there is played by the Socialist Party of Igor Dodon, the former president of Moldova, who is known for his ties to Moscow.
We are living under the dictatorial rule of Maia Sandu and this yellow plague, her party. There is an organized criminal group in our government that is trying to stay in power at any cost. Together we must show that we are not cattle. We must demonstrate that we truly matter despite what they think of us.
Above all, we want peace. We genuinely want more jobs and for our children not to flee to Europe, but rather to stay and thrive here.
Moldova must be a neutral country. We must serve the interests of our citizens, preserve our identity, our traditions, and our family values.
For those who find neutral status and family values insufficient, the patriotic bloc promises cheaper resources from Russia.
If we stand together with Russia, naturally, our utility bills and food prices will be lower, and pensions for retirees will be increased.
What else could be improved? Jobs, gas prices, electricity prices, lower because are very high. And for pensioners, of course, it's very hard to survive in this system.
All our left-wing parties have orders from Moscow to deceive people so that the Russian army comes to Moldova sooner. If it comes, we will have neither a republic, nor laws, nor jobs, nor pensions, nor salaries. There will be nothing. They will do the same as they do in Ukraine, in the occupied territories.
Even forming a coalition with moderately pro-Russian forces will inevitably lead to a slowdown in Euro integration reforms. Analysts believe that such a format of government is capable of turning progress into a series of compromises that will blur the country's strategic course.
It is very important for everyone to understand that our future depends on us and we need to come to the elections. If we don't choose, then someone else will choose for us. We must not allow this to happen. We need to be decisive about our choice and make it known. We want to be part of Europe, we want a European Moldova, we want to be together with the civilized world.
I want there to be peace on our continent because Russia is a terrorist country. And now we are going through a very difficult situation because of the war in Ukraine. And for me, for all of us, Europe means peace.
Voting will continue until 9 in the evening. To enter the Moldovan parliament, any party must overcome a 5% threshold. Political bloc of 7. Sofia Zilinska, Katarina Kravets. Details of the TV channel Inter Marathon. The only news.
The elections took place against the backdrop of accusations of massive Russian interference ahead of the vote. These claims, initially raised by Moldova's security services, were later echoed by pro-European President Maia Sandu. Speaking to reporters outside the polling station in the capital, Chișinău, she warned that the future of her country, which borders Ukraine and Romania, was under threat. More on this in our report.
Massive voter bribery, a large-scale disinformation campaign online, and efforts to discredit pro-European political forces, including the party of President Maia Sandu. This is exactly what Russia is sparing no expense on. And this is what the current parliamentary race in Moldova has turned into. Moldovan independent media are listing Russian messages aimed at stoking fear.
The European Union means war, even though in reality it is Russia that is the aggressor. Maia Sandu is closing churches, even though it is Putin and his associates who are the followers of those who, during Soviet times, forbade us from celebrating Christmas and Easter. Sandu's party is driving the country into debt, even though it is Russia that is blackmailing us with debts to Gazprom. The Sandu regime, puppets, globalists, LGBT, each of us notices these patterns.
The Russian campaign in Moldova is overseen by Sergei Kiriyenko, the first deputy chief of Putin's administration. To understand how Kiriyenko operates, we need to look at his background. Until 2022, he was responsible for eliminating the opposition in the Russian Federation, and then he became the overseer of the occupied parts of Ukraine's Luhansk and Donetsk regions. In addition, he has been actively involved in developing youth programs in Russia, and recently he has taken the Republic of Moldova under his wing. In other words, he took over the role previously performed by Dmitry Kozak. One of the supporting organizations in this, among others, is Eurasia. It was officially registered last year under the name of Nela Patrutenko, the former chief accountant of the pro-Russian Moldovan oligarch Ilan Shor. In addition to major Russian figures, they are also actively involving smaller political players.
This includes in particular the nominally pro-European Alternative Bloc and the populist political force Our Party, which has ties to Moscow. If Sandu's party loses its majority in parliament, these smaller parties could form a new bloc.
For Ukraine, it's about national security. For the European Union, it's about stability on its eastern borders.
The results of the elections will matter not only for Moldova, but far beyond its borders as well. If the Action and Solidarity Party wins a convincing victory, the government will continue its policy of reforms and integration into the European Union. For the EU itself, it's not just about expanding the bloc by including Moldova, but also about setting an example that the European project is capable of spreading stability to Eastern Europe despite Russia's efforts to prevent this. And at the same time, this becomes a major defeat for Russia, as well as a signal to other countries with fragile democracies that Russian interference can be successfully countered.
Conversely, if pro-Russian forces win, even without securing a parliamentary majority, this will at the very least stall the progress of all reforms and also affect Moldova's course toward EU accession, according to Western experts. Katarina Kravets, Podrobnosti, Inter-TV channel, Marathon, United News.
Russia had a devious plan and was very confident in it. Igor Dodon, leader of the Socialists and one of President Sandu's main rivals, appeared on national television immediately after the polls closed. He declared that his pro-Russian allies from the patriotic bloc had won the elections, despite the absence of exit polls and before any preliminary results were announced. Thanking Moldovans for turning out in record numbers, he called on the PAS government to resign and urged supporters of all opposition parties to gather outside parliament on Monday at noon to defend their vote. All of this is purely aimed at giving Russia an additional staging ground for waging the brutal war it has unleashed. Because if Russia did establish control over Moldova, the consequences would be dangerous not only for the country, but for the entire region, as Moldova's territory could become a staging ground for a Russian invasion of Ukraine's Odessa region. All the details coming up next.
Everything will be decided in the coming weekend. By disrupting the elections, Russia is trying to seize power in Moldova and overthrow the government, after which the country could be used as a staging ground for an attack on Ukraine. President Maia Sandu addressed the nation with this video message.
If Russia gains control over Moldova, the consequences will be immediate. And they threaten not only our country but the entire region. Freedom of movement could come to an end, and our land could become a staging ground for incursions into the Odessa region. The Transnistrian region will be destabilized.
At the same time, it is precisely Transnistria that poses a particular danger today, according to experts.
Let me remind you, Moldova shares 1,222 kilometers of border with Ukraine. Moldova is a small country, but important infrastructure projects, so to speak, connect us with Ukraine, which is why the stakes are high.
There, traditionally, the population has the most pro-Russian sentiments, which the Moldovan authorities have clearly not addressed sufficiently over all these years.
Politicians have called on Maia Sandu to take control of Transnistria. This pro-Russian enclave is now a huge problem not only for her country, but for the entire European continent. Of course, it's not solely her responsibility, but the leading role in this matter really does belong to her. If she had initiated the appropriate processes and changed the agenda regarding Transnistria, she would be facing significantly fewer threats today.
They decided to start fighting back only at the final stage. So less than a week before the parliamentary elections themselves, Moldova began identifying and detaining possible participants in the unrest that the Kremlin is already preparing for election day.
This is connected to the planned forceful protests after the elections. The criminal world still remains part of this overall post-Soviet system of so-called thieves in law. And so, with the help of these people and these organizations, forceful protests were being prepared both inside penitentiaries and on the outside. Just this morning, the police, together with the special services and the information and security service, carried out an operation to prevent these actions.
Thus, during searches on September 22nd in Moldova, 74 people were detained on suspicion of undergoing training in Serbia to organize rallies and protests. In particular, they were trained abroad in handling firearms and special equipment. For this, participants received about 400 euros. Law enforcement officials claim that Russian intelligence services are behind the operation, and the suspects are connected both to Moldovan political parties and to criminal groups. At the same time, the investigation itself has been ongoing since July of this year. But the use of force is only part of the Kremlin's tactics. After practicing in Romania, they also decided to use mass interference in elections through social networks in Moldova.
That is to say, a deliberately massive and overwhelming number of short videos are being meticulously recorded for platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, all of which are carefully distributed in Romanian and Russian languages, but consistently feature distinct Moldovan themes, specifically designed and intended to attract the undivided attention of our citizens. And this, indeed, is precisely what they are strategically betting on.
For those who are older and haven't mastered TikTok yet, there's a separate program. The same Russian Orthodox Church, which has assimilated in Moldova, still pursues the same religious goals: complete subordination to Moscow.
One of the concrete pillars of their identity, so to speak, is the Orthodox connection with Russia, because they are a Turkic people, Orthodox, who were supposedly relocated here by the Russian Federation at some point in history. And so they still express their gratitude in this way through their love for Russia. And so Orthodoxy, and specifically Orthodoxy in the Russian style, serves as a point of connection and communication with Russia for them. And of course, Russia uses this to strengthen its political influence, as well as to increase its economic and separatist influence over the regions.
At the same time, analysts remind us that Moldova's political system is organized in such a way that the parliament has significantly broader powers, including those related to foreign policy direction. That's why government elections are almost more important than the election of the country's leader.
It seems to me that, unfortunately, this understanding is lacking. If we talk about society as a whole, in percentage terms, there is a lack of understanding of the degree of threat, because people think, well, my goodness, how many times has this already happened? We had the pro-Russian Voronin in power, then he was replaced, then there was the pro-Russian Dodon, and he was replaced again. But all of that was before the illness of that very northern dictator reached such an extreme stage, when he started attacking neighboring countries and sending drones over the European Union. And I think that if this time we end up in his clutches again, it won't be as easy to get out as it was in the past.
Experts also believe that this week will remain tense right up until the elections, which will take place this weekend. At the same time, the authorities are urging people to stay alert around the clock, since this is essentially Russia's last chance to steer Moldova away from European integration by relatively peaceful means.
The Kremlin lost the first phase of the hybrid war in the fall of 2024, when it tried to disrupt the referendum and the re-election of Maia Sandu. And now the struggle is unfolding over control of the parliament.
What do you think about the latest events unfolding around Moldova? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video, and stay informed about the main headlines. More to come.